To some who live in the suburbs, it's a jungle. To some who live within its boundaries, it's also a jungle. But on the map, it's Detroit, the motor capital of the world and the home of more than 1,600,000 people. Like many large cities today, it plays host to crime, a lot of crime. And like many big cities, a large part of its population is black. The latest figures indicate better than 40%. But the makeup of Detroit's police department is far below 40%, and therein lies the rub. Many in the black community are convinced that black policemen, and only black policemen, can deal with many of the problems of this city.
But candidates for the police academy, both black and white, are hard to come by. This is a story of some of Detroit's black policemen, a few old-timers and some newcomers. It's also a story of a city, one that most of us know only from newspapers and newscasts. And in a way, it's a plea for more black policemen.
There's a new breed of cop in Detroit, young, able, and committed. To a few, he's a hated symbol, the same old menace in darker skin. To this woman and many like her, he's the man on the scene, a friend in time of need. To himself, he is often the man in the middle. Lately, much attention has been given to the black officer. There's an intensive campaign to recruit more in urban centers. And with this has come reports of friction and some open hostility involving white and black officers. Chicago and New York have militant black police organizations. And 2 years ago, there was an unsuccessful effort here in Detroit to form a black police union. The U.S. Civil Rights Commission, in its quarterly publication, called the black cop the man in the middle. Inspector Frank Blunt, a 20-year veteran of the Detroit force, was named to head the 13th precinct a few months ago.
You're in the paper? They're peace lovers.
I love the Indians.
We need more peaceful people like that. Don't you agree?
He's regarded as a tough cop, has several citations, and is now the head of the precinct where he was born and raised. He and another veteran, Sergeant Robert Peterson, were asked what it was like for a black cop in the department 20 years ago.
Well, he was the man on the outside, I'd say. The policeman of 20 years ago was very few of us. And being very few, of course, you know, you recognize the fact that you were on the outside and you were striving to get on the inside. And a lot of us washed by the wayside, but some of us have managed to survive.
You can't change everything in one day, and it's been a long, hard process, and these are things that we're trying to overcome in the police department, and I'm sure that's going to work out. It's just a matter that the right things happen at the right time. The black officer of today feels that he's getting maybe the dirty end of it, but he should have been there 20 years ago when the guys really had something to beef about. Now it's getting better all the time, and it'll be better.
Unless you could see Patrolman Percy Hooper and Calvin Strickland loading their car for their nightly rounds, you would never suspect they are policemen. Both are high school graduates, veterans of Vietnam, and like Inspector Blunt, work in an area where they were born and raised. Officer Hooper says this gives them an advantage in their work.
Yeah, I tell you what, you get to know more about, you know more about what your people want. I mean, because I hear the majority of the area that we're working in is predominantly black.
Yeah.
See, so I hear you've lived in this type area, and then you watched the police. You watched the police at work, and so then you come back to this type area.
What was your attitude towards policemen when you were
When I was a
up
kid,
down here?
hey, I couldn't stand them.
Why not?
You see the way they do things.
Is this one of the reasons you joined the force? You decided to...
Somewhat, yes. You figure that, hey, I can do a little better than this. And so you come on out here and you try and do it.
The fact that you came from a neighborhood like this, and you are what's called a new breed of black officers, you wear an afro and a beard, find that any of the white officers, your colleagues, or even your superiors resent this?
And they don't understand it, see? That's the thing, you know? They don't understand this. Because here, you got to be two people, see? You got the type, and you can understand why they don't trust the police. And, okay, you're one, and you got to remain black. You're going to remain black. So what you do here is we're just going to live with the fact that you're a policeman. That's all.
Let's take young people in a neighborhood like this, young blacks. When they find out you're a policeman, do they resent this? Are they hostile toward you?
Somewhat. And then this is where you come in again, your experience. You let them know, hey, because now here, you run into kids that will tell you, hey, look here, damn the pigs. See, because now here, you got to understand that, hey, they don't really know. A lot of them don't really know what this big fight is about. And so then that's where your job come in, because you were a part of this once, and then you try and explain to them that, hey, you know, we're trying to make it better. It's going to be better. And I tell you what, keep out of trouble and this type of thing, and eventually you might become a policeman. You might want to become a policeman. And if you file your record up here, well, look, man, I came from the ghetto. Well, so what? I did too. So what? Hey, that's no question. Because I tell them many times, hey, look here, you can make it out. I'll tell you, that's what I preach to the kids. You can make it out. I did. Hey, when I was down here, I never thought about owning a big house. Even though I don't think things were as bad, because I don't even recall ever having a key to our house, because you didn't have to lock up. You didn't ever have to lock up.
Conditions have changed now.
Oh, you better lock up.
You get a chance to get out and talk to any of the people?
Oh, yes, sir. That's what's so beautiful about this detail. And you see, because nobody ever, hey, if we put this car down, now we do have cars where, hey, nobody ever brand you as a police because there's no marking whatsoever. They pick this up. This car they can pick up as a police. But we park it, walk, and we get into some beautiful conversations. And what I like is the kids. Hey, I say, on the radio, I don't worry about the old fellas too much. I'm talking about the people whose minds are already set. But here, you got to bring out to these kids, and they want to belong to something. They feel shut out, and they got good reason. They feel shut out of all this. So now here, someone has got to come in and let them know, hey, don't be led. Why can't you be the leader? See? And here, you know what? It would be a beautiful thing if, even if the department don't know to the extent that where we work out here, you don't put all this down. You get out and you run a program to the kids. And I'll tell you what, I've stood out here for, say, an hour at a time, and you can do this, and just talk to the guys, and they feel closer to you, and each time I've heard the kids say, hey, look, you know what, we never had an opportunity to really talk to the police. They see, because now here, you know what, the police, all up to this time, you know, he always puts himself on a higher plane than the people. See, nobody ever sees him smile or play ball or get out and just out and out shoot the bullshit with the kids. I mean, and just talk about everyday things. See, they don't get to know him like this. You see a bunch of kids standing out in front of a store in the black ghettos, and and they're standing there and they're MFing this and they're MFing this. Hey, so now here, you can break this up with no type of incident. Hey, see, I'll tell you what, now, the white officers, he won't get over this good because he don't know what to say. If you aren't black, you can't do this because you don't know what to say to them. You can break them down real quick and simple. Hey, young man, you know, you said that you want black ownership in your black community. You know what? You got it. There it is. But now here, who's coming? Nobody. Because you standing out here, you're MF and this. The patrons can't come to the store because they're scared to death. They're scared to come. And now here, why don't you give the man a break? See, there's something you can do. And I got one phrase I always give to the kids. Hey, don't blame all this on the man or whoever you want to call it. You know, you got the slangs out here. Hey, man, you know what? Why they did this? Hey, but here, hey, watch yourself. Hey, let's see, what are you contributing to this thing? You're standing out here, you're hampering this man, this black man, you're hampering him. And you know what? I've had the guy at the store stop me on the street days later and say, hey, that was a beautiful job.
What about when you're dealing with somebody who's considered an extreme militant, a Black Panther?
Hey, what? You talk to him too. He'll listen. A lot of them. Hey, you know what? Most black people see now here. You gotta define what is militant. Hey, all black folks are militant. That's my opinion. That's my opinion of it. How can you be anything else?
This team of plainclothesmen assigned to the 10th Precinct walk through this apartment building every night. The building has 40 units. All of them have been burglarized at least once in the past few weeks. The nightly patrol has reduced the B&Es and has also given Patrolman Maurice Bates and Norman McKenzie a chance to meet and talk to the occupants.
Police officer. Yeah. I was just walking through the hall to check the door. Okay. What is your name, sir? Woods. Sammy Woods? Okay. And I'm Officer Bates, and this is Officer Norman. Okay, thank you very much.
Just exactly
No policeman can work effectively without citizen help. Officers Smith and Davis were stopped by this cab driver who had information on a possible drug den.
Marijuana and dope, 38 revolvers, and 30 rifles. And he went up to the house and bought a nickel bag of heroin, or not heroin, but marijuana. Because he came back to me and got changed for a 10 and said, hang on to the 5. Then he comes out in the cab. He says, do you want a joint? He shows me the bag, and I says, no, I don't touch the stuff.
Yeah, I shouldn't need any more than this. I should see if we can get
They want the information, they can get in touch with me.
Okay.
Officers like Bates and McKenzie are often assigned to surveillance and infiltration of extremist groups, such as the Black Panthers. There have been some confrontations. The most recent ended in the death of Patrolman Glenn Smith. Panther spokesman Chuck Holt gave his view of the black cop.
Well, looking at things historically, as far as they're making communications with the party, Black Panther Party, or with the black community as a whole, the black community and the party will go by black police officers' practice. And in the past, it's been pretty shaky because there was a time when the white racist police would come into our community and brutalize and murder and torture black people. But when black people start defending themselves, then they move the black police into the community. And they're still torturing us, they're still brutalizing us, and conditions of the black community haven't changed at all. So when they start showing that they are really policemen and not pigs, then we can establish some type of dialogue because they're showing where they're coming from, just doing what they're doing.
You can help but notice and refer to this pig you've got here on your desk. Apparently the term is not offensive to you at all.
It used to be.
We all know a young black officer from this very precinct was recently killed, allegedly, by a member of the Panther Party. How do you regard the Panthers?
Well, I perhaps regard the Panthers pretty much in the same light as the rest of the black community. That is that there's a need for the kind of dialogue that they go through. The rhetoric, the violent rhetoric, is something I don't agree with. I can agree with one or two of the points of their 10-point program. I think, however, that they have a right to express themselves. I think they have a right to sell their paper as long as they don't harass people with it as they've been doing, as long as they don't violently thrust it into you, this kind of thing. If you don't want to buy it, let them move on, see. I think that when they turn to this violent kind of reaction here, that this is, and I say they, and everybody is innocent until proven guilty, but we have our own opinions. And it's a question of, how can I put it? How do I feel? I felt very angry the night that Glenn Smith was killed. I'm angry right now, but it's a problem that we'd like to take care of. When I say we, I think that it's a total city problem, but I think that more particularly it's a problem of, it's a family problem, like.
Nadine Browne, Michigan Chronicle reporter and a longtime critic of some police practices, is credited with doing much to prevent further bloodshed in the 16th and Myrtle Street incident. Her view of the black officer was also negative.
You have some black policemen that seem to be trying to prove that they can be just as bad as some of the racist policemen. There have been instances where reports have come to me where the white policemen stand by while the black ones crack heads,
Some black officers have expressed a desire to open up dialogue and communication with what is considered extremist groups such as the Black Panthers. Do you feel they are sincere in their efforts?
No, I don't. Now, I say that maybe some are, because I happen to know that there are some cops who are pretty good guys, But by and large, too many of them aren't. If they get good down-to-earth officers who really believe in doing the right thing and understand, because every black officer ought to understand what the mood of the community is and what is really happening in the community. If you get those with that kind of attitude, then things can be resolved, because they're the ones to do it. I maintain it's the guy on that job that's able to straighten things out, not the people from the outside, and they can get plenty of help from the outside.
If there's one group eager to receive the growing number of black policemen, it's the merchants in the areas they patrol. Mrs. Lottie Richards, whose store was recently burglarized.
Well, they were here in a few minutes after it happened, right after the alarm people came.
Mm-hmm. Have they made a return visit?
They called, and they wanted to know if I'd had a chance to inventory and what was missing.
What has been your relationship over the past few weeks with specifically the black officers who are now patrolling this area? Do you think it's a good thing?
I do. I think it's a good thing, and I also feel sorry for them.
Why do you feel sorry for them?
So many of our policemen are losing their life and leaving children and wives. And as far as my part, I couldn't be a policeman nowadays.
Bar owner Carroll Evans, who is constantly on guard against robbers.
We've got crime down in this area quite a bit. And I think it's because of one thing, I've actually seen him riding around in a scout car. And he's also made a call to this bar and other bars. And that's helped a lot when the inspector will get out and make a call. I think it makes everyone in the neighborhood feel a little better.
You feel closer to the officers because there are more and more black officers working in this area?
I think that's a very good idea out here because we get better control. It seems to me that they can get together better with the people and they can reach them. So I think it's working out pretty good.
Some people who are resentful of policemen, but for the most part, they recognize the need for you and they recognize what you are. I think for the most part that policemen are accepted and they're recognized by their community as to what they have to do, and there's a lot of sympathy generated out there.
One of the most frequent and to the public most frustrating areas of contact with the black officer is a simple thing, the traffic ticket.
Which they tend to. Middle-class blacks tend to put you on the same level as the middle-class white. You know, so you're there to serve me and to do what I tell you to do. And I kind of resent this, you know, is that...
Officers Davis and Smith had followed this speeding car for about 5 blocks before the driver stopped. He was puzzled as to why he was pulled over, but after receiving his ticket, said he was impressed with the politeness of the officers and their conduct in the whole procedure. Public attitudes are not the entire story. Those accounts of friction between the black and white cops are far more important. Councilman Ernest Browne worked with the mayor's task force on recruiting before his election to the council.
I've seen many examples of the rough treatment that the black officer receives in the department from his colleagues. From talking with these gentlemen, I've seen ways in which they've been discriminated against. For instance, you know, it hasn't been too long since a time when white officers would not ride with black officers. Now there seems to be friction right in the precincts between the black officers and the white officers. It seems as though there's just an unwillingness to accept him as a fellow officer. And I feel that the black officer has paid his dues. He's fought crime for all these years, and he's still fighting crime. This year, 2 of our very finest young black officers lost their lives. I feel that it's too much to ask the young black officer to fight crime in the streets and then have to fight prejudice right within his own police department.
We all are part of the same bunch, and we all identified as being one. But I don't hold any overt hostilities towards anyone. What has happened? This is what you call destiny. This is what you call fate. It had to be. But that hasn't made me not want to go out and live with any white officers or move next door to white officers. However, we can sit down and communicate and understand that we have a common problem, and we should use a common solution, which we should compromise on.
Let me put it this way, is that there has been a change in attitude and desire, I think, to bring about a complete union, but of the two. I'm not talking about a labor union. I'm talking about a social kind of thing. And whether it's successful or not, I don't know. I find that in many areas it is. I find that I'm more at ease with some of the white officers today than I was 20 years ago. And I find that I'm just the opposite with some of them, too. And I think that this perhaps prevails because there's a new awareness, a so-called new awareness among blacks. And this is something that many, many white people can't understand. This is the black pride, you see. And it can sometimes be offensive to other people. I've found that I've been offensive. And let's see what was said recently, is that if you keep beating a person with bigotry, if you keep saying that you're a bigot, well, you know, however it's said in jest or otherwise, well, the person is going to soon turn you off. So I think that maybe it's just a lack of understanding at this point. I say that some areas have improved, some haven't. There's still a lot of room for improvement.
In what areas specifically?
Well, I think that the primary thing is how each person, including policemen, see his fellow man, you see. He should treat those people as he would like to be treated and not try to tell them how to live their lives. Do his job, 8 hours a day or whatever time he's there, and let the other guy do his, and then when you leave, go do your own thing.
And we work mostly in black areas where the black officer depends on the white officer, and the white officer also depends on the black officer. In this type of work, it's a lot different than in uniform as far as getting along and answering the type of runs that they answer where there could be friction of speaking and that, but we all have to speak the same language more or less here. The black and white problem in the police department exists everywhere. But I think in a close unit, in a small group, where each man can be evaluated as a man, you don't have these problems where on a shift, where 60 guys, 70 guys, when you're working with 10 or 12 people in a unit, it's a lot better. It's better for the people because they're going to tell their friends. The black officer's going to tell their friends, well, man, like, it's not like you say where I work. And the other guy says, well, man, when I'm working, the white guys are doing this, and the white guys are doing that, and the black guys have got the dirty details. We don't have it that way. like I said, we stay together and we work together because it's the only way we can survive.
I think there's a tendency very often to equate normal differences, which might reflect the frustrations of police work in general when there are officers of two different races involved, as to racial difficulty. But the black officer may be an answer to the problem of community relations and the problem of bridging the credibility gap in the black community. We are attempting, as you know, by our recruiting program to increase the capability of the department to more properly represent the cross-section of our city in general.
The militancy expressed by many of the black cops led to the question, does the black officer regard himself as first a black man or first a policeman?
A man first. A black man first. Okay, we'll say that. And then a policeman. You have to be, because you were born that way. You were born black, you grew into a manhood, and then I became a policeman.
I don't particularly always want to look upon myself as a black police officer, but as a professional police officer.
For the Detroit policeman, the fight against crime is an endless routine of muggings and housebreakings, holdups and homicides. More than 500 homicides in 1970. Among that 500, the names of patrolmen William Slappy and Glenn Smith, black policemen. Just this past Thursday night, patrolman Percy Hooper, who narrated a portion of this documentary, came under fire while on duty in the 13th precinct. With the fight against crime also goes the battle for more men to wear the badge of Detroit policemen. And in the words of Commissioner John Nichols, a battle for more, many more black policemen.
You can't change everything in one day, and it's been a long, hard process, and these are things that we're trying to overcome in the police department, and I'm sure that's going to work out. It's just a matter that the right things happen at the right time. The black officer of today feels that he's getting maybe the dirty end of it, but he should have been here 20 years ago when the guys really had something to beef about. Now it's getting better all the time, and it'll be better.
The black policeman is the answer, you see. He's the one, strangely enough, that can bridge both communities. He's the one that I've heard often stated, and that the black policeman is generally more professional, you see. And that's the way he's looked upon. Now, this may be because of a number of reasons. It might be because having been booted around and denied so long, that he is more courteous when he stops a person, black or white. He does have an understanding of the position that the person is in when he's stopped by a policeman, confronted by authority. You see, these are just things that I think would incline you towards the saying, oh yeah, there's hope, you know. Because if I didn't think there was hope, because in the morning, I have great optimism, but along about midnight, very depressed.